So welcome to the Sean Trey Show. We actually started talking. I've got a really cool guest, and I'll let him introduce himself in a second here. But he had a question for me. So why don't you ask me your question, Bill?
Hey, Sean. Yeah, I'm just so curious. How did you end up in Vietnam?
Yeah, it's a great question. I grew up all over the U.S. My dad's British, my mom's American, and I originally I was born in New England, but I had been living in California for a long time. And in graduate school, I studied martial arts and I studied Eastern philosophy, and I wanted I was like, I moved to Vietnam just to kind of get a different angle. And when I got here, it was one of those situations where you think you know what you're getting into and you totally don't. And then life has a way of kind of upending your whole reality. That's what happened to me here. And I came here in 2001, but then I went back to the States and started working in film and music, but I also studied acupuncture and Eastern medicine. But then I was getting deep in student loan debt, and I was like, just, kind of disenchanted with, my studies, and I wanted to get back to Asia and move back here to keep doing film and media, and that's what I've been doing for a while. And yeah,
Sean, if I may ask,
please do.
Your wife is where's your wife from?
She's from Vietnam, and she's actually a famous singer.
Me.
Yeah. She was the first winner of Vietnam Idol, and we do media together, and that's kind of what we do, is try to inspire people and build positivity. And I last year I was like, I wanted to start doing some interviews with people that I found interesting, which is how I came upon you. I was looking up. I had been doing a lot of interviewing a lot of people in film and in music because those were areas that I knew. And I was like, well, I really want to start looking at other areas and other types of areas that I find people interesting and other types of interesting people. And so I started looking up fitness and training and weightlifting, and I came across your Instagram profile, and I was like, wow, these are some amazing workouts. Now dive in, tell people who you are and what you do, so that the people that are watching can kind of get an idea of what you do and talk about your media.
Okay, yeah. This whole thing, it started, at least my social media presence. I've been posting on YouTube since about 2009.
Okay.
And those were just certification videos. I was submitting or practicing and also submitting videos to what's called the RKC. That would be Pavel Tsatsalin's. Mm-hmm. I believe the RKC is no longer. I think he's turned it into Strong First.
Okay.
But the Russian Kettlebell Challenge.
Okay.
That was the prevailing kettlebell organization, and I was trying to certify with them. But since I'm in Hawaii, I would sometimes have to submit some of my tests, like snatch tests and Turkish get-ups and things, on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just doing that, and nothing really came of that. And so then fast forward to 2020, just like the rest of the world, Hawaii went on lockdown in March of 2020. Yeah. So I was at home and I was training clients on Zoom. I'm a personal trainer in Honolulu. And that's all I've ever been since I graduated from high school. This is all I've done. So I was working with clients on Zoom, and just like everybody else, they were meeting with me maybe twice a week, but the other days they weren't doing anything. And so just one day I was having a conversation with one of them, and I asked, hey man, what would it take for you to actually train on the days where we don't meet on Zoom? And the guy kind of smirked and he says, you know what, are you training every day? Or are you training? And, I was kind of just being as lazy as the next guy. So he kind of busted me. So I said, hey, probably not. He said, so here's what. Because my thing at the time was the 10-minute workout. I was just asking them to do 10 minutes, but something every day. I wasn't even calling it a workout. It was just practice.
Yeah.
Making the time in your schedule to practice something physical and breathing based for just 10 minutes. And so he said, you know what would help me is if you would actually video what you're doing for 10 minutes and just post it on YouTube, and I'll just turn that on, and that'll be my motivation for, I'll just train as long as the video is. And he wasn't going to do exactly what I was doing. It would just be like, just watching me do that would get him out there. So I said, okay. So I did that, and I just started posting those daily, about 10 or so minutes of this, whatever I was doing. And I guess, the videos started circulating on YouTube, and I started getting some responses. And then one of them went a little bit like mini viral. It kind of took off, and then another one took off. And within a short period of time, I went from having like maybe a couple thousand. I remember it was 2011 subscribers, and all my subscribers kind of rapidly jumped up to about 36,000.
That's awesome.
And I was just shocked. And it was most likely the pandemic, with so many people being on YouTube, because I was not expecting that. I didn't start this to be an influencer or anything like of the sort. In fact, I was so camera shy. I was so, I didn't even address anybody on social media. I didn't actually talk to the camera or speak with my voice until over a year of doing these videos. I'd just set up my camera. I'd prop it on a chair with some almond milk boxes. I didn't even have a tripod, and I just would go out, didn't care about the lighting or anything, and I'd do my 10-minute thing, and I'd just post it, and I'd go inside and go on in my life. And even after the YouTube channel started growing, I didn't really know anything about, monetizing or what to do. I was just putting this out, and I enjoyed engaging with the comments.
Yeah.
And, And then so shortly after about a year, literally a year of just doing YouTube, TikTok had been around, but I'm not a really tech savvy guy. I'm 53, and some guys in my age group were just dinosaurs, and I'm one of them. And my daughter, I have an 18-year-old and a 9-year-old, and my older one suggested that I start clipping some of, like, maybe just a little few seconds of what I felt was the best part of the workout or the most interesting part, and putting that on TikTok. And I started doing that, and I posted on TikTok for a little while, and my account grew rather quickly. I think the second video I ever posted to TikTok was that one hit about 1.5 million views the day I put it up. So I just started posting I kind of stopped doing the long 10-minute thing on YouTube, because it was clear to me that, there was a much greater interest in the shorts.
Yeah.
And then after a few months of posting on TikTok, and when my daughter realized that, my channel grew to about 1 million followers within I'd have to maybe say about 6 months, it got up there. And she said, and I just thought that happened with, this sounds a little naive, but I thought that was just standard. I just thought if you just put up something, your account will grow, and because it happened relatively fast, and so I didn't think anything of it. So and my daughter looked at my account one day. She's like, "Oh my, you have 1 million followers. Why aren't you putting this on Instagram?" And I was like, "What is that?" I was really like out of it. My Instagram account was only with my classmates at the time.
Yeah.
I only had maybe a few hundred people following me. So I started posting on Instagram. And then it was very clear to me that TikTok was helping my Instagram following grow. So then whatever I would do on TikTok, I just put that on Instagram, and the channels all came up, and I guess maybe that's how you found me. But it was all just kind of, in my eyes, it was more of like an accident, because I didn't know to this day, this sounds stupid, but I just recently started using hashtags on my videos. Like, Yeah, I mean, because my daughter was saying, Daddy, how come you're not putting hashtags? And I was like, is that the pound sign thing? And she just rolled her eyes and she's all, oh my God. But yeah, she explained to me how that works. And so I've been doing that now, which is, I guess, it seems to be helping. But yeah, so it's just kind of
It's like
a
it was
fun
like
accidental.
literally the perfect storm, like of everything coming together in a positive way of the timing. I mean, granted, there was nothing perfect about COVID, but it was a time where people were looking for health information and how to stay healthy while stay stuck at home. And I think that one of the things that you pointed out too, the fact that you didn't necessarily talk early on, I think one of the dangers of workout videos is when people spend, 10 minutes kind of like, all right, so now I'm going to talk to you about the blah, 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 blah. And people are like, I want to work out, can you show me?
Right,
And I think there's
right.
some
Yeah,
magic in just showing,
yeah.
not telling.
And Sean, I've been fortunate enough to be on a few other podcasts, and what I forgot to tell the listeners on those podcasts, because everyone wants to know how I got started in this. But another thing that my clients or nobody really knew is I had a pretty serious bout with colon cancer in 2012.
Really?
And I had a real harsh chemotherapy for 6 months. And I've been exposed to so many CAT scans, I can no longer get x-rays because of the radiation exposure I've already received. So the years following, all the way up to the pandemic in 2020, um, over those years, I had kind of, I ended up going into a kind of a depression.
Interesting.
And like I said, training is all I've ever done since high school. So, um, yeah, but I just felt horrible. My every joint hurt.
Mm.
It felt like I had no cartilage in it felt I just was completely depleted, and every time I'd do something, I'd feel sick, and so I actually used the feedback that I was getting. Initially it was just posting for a few clients, but the feedback I got from the YouTube community and later TikTok and Instagram, that was for me very, very significant and instrumental in me continuing with this, because now it was like, because I was literally on that first video I posted to YouTube, I think it was April 13th of 2020, just a few push-ups were really painful, and I
Mm.
couldn't really do a good pull-up on a bar. I had to use these little foam handles that you attach to cable machines, because my shoulders were so just, I mean, I was a wreck. I wasn't, yeah. So I was a shadow of myself. And over the year that I was on YouTube, I started to build myself up just 10 minutes a day. And I wasn't trying to kill myself on any of it. I was going pretty easy, but I was consistent. And over the course of that year, I guess anyone, you'd see the progression
Yeah.
of, yeah, because at first it was just push-ups and maybe some kettlebell movements that were really minor and some very light dumbbell work. And that's gotten me to where I am now. So.
That's super inspiring to me on a couple levels. The first thing that's really inspiring about that is I personally, one of the reasons I had to push back, I had to reschedule all my appointments and my everything last week, was because I have suffered digestive issues for 10 plus years. I have, for some reason, a poorly functioning gallbladder, and I had a cholecystitis last week, and it just absolutely flared up, and I was down with the sweats, and they were, I was doing, getting cameras up and down just to check to see what's going on, and they're like, yeah,
right,
just got to take it easy. But then yesterday was the first day, because of a lot of the challenges I've had. Yesterday was the first day I've been back in the gym in a long time. And I'm, doing like a transformation with my wife. And I want to say, honest to God, one of the people that was inspiring me is I've been going through my own stuff, of also of like, I'm 43 now. And we
Okay.
we in our culture, our world culture, I would say, is just there's this idea of and everyone talks about it for women, about how there's these age related expectations, but they're there for
Sure.
men as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I was like, well, what can I be fit? 43, can I get back into shape? Can I do powerlifting? Can I lift, in a way that is, like inspiring, or get a fit body? And I then was looking under, like, I was looking up, and I found, and I was like super inspired by the fact that you were 53 and doing this weightlifting that was just really awesome. And I was like, man, 53, I can do it too. And it was this really inspiring thing. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. And I just was super inspired, even with all of the health challenges I had. I was like, I got to just keep it up and push through. And that's really inspiring
Yeah,
to hear about what you went through as well.
yeah, we both had gut issues of
Right.
varying degrees and
Varying
whatever,
degrees,
but
understandably.
but yeah, I mean, I had a foot of my ascending colon removed, and
Man.
it was a big deal, and
Yeah.
it was kind of touch and go for a little while. But yeah, that's another thing that I want people to know, that both coming from a place of being rather sick, and then mentally, gosh, probably for 10 years, I just started spiraling slowly, but progressively spiraling. It's kind of interesting. I was literally thinking in the months before the pandemic hit, I was actually thinking of leaving the industry,
Really?
because I didn't feel like I was authentic to my clients. Even the ones that were 10 or 15 years older than I am, they were training more than I was, just by coming to see me twice a week for an hour.
Wow.
So yeah, I was in a really bad space with my practice and the fitness industry in general. Yeah, so in a way, that time that I had, I mean, yeah, it was. I don't want to diminish the consequence that others suffered during that time, but for me, it gave me enough space to kind of regroup and kind of build myself up. Where it was kind of a weird thing, because when the world seemed to be collapsing and falling apart, that time allowed me, and the time with my family allowed me to really kind of heal
Yeah.
and kind of collect myself. So
You know, again, like I talked about earlier, I'm a big follower of Eastern philosophy and the idea of Taoism. If you go back to Taoist philosophy, and they have the yin and yang,
right,
and there's a
sure,
time to push, there's a time to go forward, but
hmm
there's also the thing I think that we neglect, we very much neglect in our modern world, is a time to slow down and a time to heal. And thinking about from a training perspective, you work this muscle group today, and then you back off of it, and give that body part time to heal. And I think that in so much in our modern lives, we are just driven to go, 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 go. And it's tricky. And I think that one of the things that I've heard from a lot of people is that during the lockdowns, people were, had time to evaluate things, had time to think, and had time to kind of have some introspection of sorts.
yeah, for sure, yeah. And so, um, yeah, I was just listening to, I guess, something on YouTube today about the Great Resignation,
Right.
how it's a global phenomenon.
Right.
It's not just an American thing; it's global, and it's very clear that just people. I mean, no matter where they are, they're all the same, and I guess a lot of them came to the same conclusions during that time, and yeah, in a way, I guess I did too. Because I, even though I was as isolated as I've ever been, as was everybody else, just being locked, and literally, we could be cited or even arrested for leaving our homes. That
Right.
at the height of our lockdown,
Yeah.
I was, because I used to tell my wife and my daughters that I would wake up when it was dark. I'd go to my 600 square foot studio. I train people that I love. They're wonderful people, but I was very comfortable with them. And I knew exactly who was showing up, how long I was going to be with them. It's a very predictable schedule, very safe. And then I'd come home when the sun is going down, and to my family, which, I'm always happy to go home to them. But my world was just very small.
Yeah.
And it was very limited. And then it was ironic that when we went on lockdown, that's where my world started to expand. I mean, just in the comments I would get from, I was at a point where any comment that I got on YouTube, it was just like dope for me. I would just answer that question in depth it was just really, it was fun. It was just fun connecting with people all over the world. And yeah, I never understood social media previously because I watched a lot of YouTube. I didn't do, Facebook or any of that stuff. I had no interest. But yeah, during that time of isolation is where my connection with humanity really expanded, and it gave me a much greater appreciation for people and our commonality with, no matter what country they were coming from. I was just so fascinated how similar and how we're all the same. We all have the same needs and requirements, and it was just cool. It was very enlightening for me.
Well, there's something that you touched on there that was really interesting to me. How you would go to work and then you would come home, and even though you had this day that seemed like so much was happening, it still operates inside of a box. You know what I mean? We all are operating in these boxes. Like last night, my daughter, I found I want her to learn about. She's really tall and thin, just like me. And so, but my family has this bad habit of rounding and slouching. So one of the things, right from the beginning, I really wanted her to work and play and train with things that will help her, just own her posture. And so I found some ballet classes, and she loves it.
Oh, okay.
And so we went to one place, but it's so far across the city. And then I found this place in a neighborhood that I'd never been to. And when I was driving there, I felt uncomfortable, not because of anything about the neighborhood, but because this wasn't my normal place that I go. It was new.
Uh-huh.
And there is that discomfort in the newness. You know what I mean? It could be nice or not nice. That wasn't the thing. It was just that it was different. And it forced me, and my daughter's like, well, where are we, Daddy? And I was like, I don't know. I've never been here before. This is
Sean, what city are you in?
I'm in Ho Chi Minh City.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm in Ho Chi Minh City.
Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And so I was driving out to District 8, which is that way. Never been there.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, it was fascinating to be in a place. It reminds me of in a video. You ever play video games when you were younger? Or Mario or anything?
When I was younger, yeah.
Mario.
Yeah.
And you get to the new level and you're like, whoa, it's the water world.
Right.
I mean, it's like it's like almost like unlocking a new level. And I think that one of the things that I'm trying to teach my daughter, and I have to force myself to remember, is I think that all of us, we get comfortable playing the same level. We get comfortable playing, all right, I'm going to play Mario, and you play level 1 again and again and again. But I think life is so much more rich. And I think one of the things that happened with COVID, and I think the Great Resignation, is people are realizing, I don't want to just play this level. How about this? How about this? How about this? How about this? And can you see yourself in a different way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, lots of people have or are in the process of reinventing them or rediscovering themselves. And I just think it's just really, it's cool for everyone. So
did you myself coming to I grew up with sports. I played collegiate volleyball, did judo, jiu-jitsu, and I went to the gym. But this is the weird thing is I never ever had a personal trainer. One of the things that even in the last couple of days, I'm crazy sore because I'm working muscles that I never knew I could. And it was interesting because as I'm approaching this, it's helping me look at things in a new way. And I'm seeing, wow, maybe there's potential for my own body and my own health. Do you get a lot of people that come to you that are just blown away by some of the workouts that you're doing and some of the things that you're putting online because they didn't think they could pull it off?
That's a funny question because I've been fortunate enough where almost all of my clients now recently, I guess there's exceptions now because in the last few months I've been due to I guess as my platforms have expanded, I have picked up a significant amount of new clients through Instagram and even TikTok, but mostly through Instagram. And those people, they saw me on my videos and they're kind of whatever, blown away or whatever. But my clients that I've had here, the local people that I train in my studio in person, many of them, I've been with them, some of them over 10 years.
That's awesome.
And yeah, even the newest ones, locals it's years that I've been with them. So they knew me well before I was doing this, and most of them I'm a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on Instagram and TikTok, I'm much more creative when I'm out in my little front yard. I live in a little townhouse, and that little plot of grass and that strip of concrete, that's like my little creativity altar or something. When I'm outside, I'm inspired, and it's just but they don't really, they're not really, they might be impressed with like how many followers but none of them really like watch my stuff daily.
That's awesome.
I'm sure some of them don't even, they just look at it's sort of like, if your brother, your sister or something was, it's just kind of
cool, bro. That's, all right.
Yeah, they don't ask me about what I'm doing on a social media they just kind of come in and we do what we've always done, and we just talk about our families and whatever we talk about, and they leave, and they're very not impressed, which I kind of like.
Right.
I don't want, and whether it's new people or those older clients that I've had for a long time, or just people I meet, I do get recognized now. I'm, in Honolulu, it's we might have 1 million people in the entire state.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little bit more than 1 million spread out. There's 8 islands.
Yeah.
So, but more often than not, if I go to Costco or I go to the market or whatever, I will have somebody just say, and they'll say, "Are you Bill Maeda?" And you can tell they're like, wow. And I just want to know, I'm a father of 2 girls, and I'm a husband. I got 2 fat little puppies, and I'm the same guy, and I don't want to be like, I appreciate their regard for me, but I just want people to know that I'm just a normal guy. Like, I consider myself just as normal as the next guy.
That's awesome.
I just want them to feel comfortable if they want to say hi. I might look a little scary in my videos because I'm like kind of focusing on what I'm doing, and apparently that face is a little bit mean looking, but I'm not like that. If you ever run into me at the market, I'm pretty chill, and I'll say hi, and
that's awesome.
So I kind of like it that people do treat me just normally and just are comfortable with me.
There's I love watching some of Dwayne Johnson's videos, and one of the things that I love that he does is when he always finds
who's that?
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
I'm only kidding.
Okay, I was like, wow, cool. You really
I'm messing with you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Really out of it. No, I'm not. I'm messing with you, Sean. I'm not that out of it. Yeah, The Rock.
Well, he does these cool videos.
I love The Rock.
Yeah, the Rock's awesome. He does these cool videos where he pulls up next to the tour buses in LA. And he'll roll down his window and he'll be like, "Did you guys see any celebrities here?" And people are like, "What?"
They freak.
You freak out.
Yeah.
And it's like
No
he never
kidding.
has lost to him. Man's super successful, but he's never seemingly lost
Oh
touch of
yeah.
who he is, and that to me is so important.
No. I remember the first time it was, oh gosh, it was maybe, this is the 90s, late 90s, or one of the first mainstream movies I remember seeing with him in it was a comedy. And I didn't know anything about him. I just knew he was a they might have even called it the WWF
WWF at
back
that time,
then.
yeah,
Right. Um, and my friends wanted to go see this. I'm like, what? How funny can one of those wrestler guys? This is gonna suck. And the movie started, and not only was he funny, but his personality was so likable,
right.
and you can't fake that,
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, wow, because by the end of that movie, it was a great movie. I was very entertained, and I left with a whole new view of who he was, and I liked him.
yeah,
Yeah, he was great. It was very inspiring. It was like, wow, this guy's like huge. He's gnarly. He's a killer, but he's funny and he's light and he's very. It seemed like he had very approachable, nice guy.
yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. I like The Rock.
Right. We need more people like that out there. Now what?
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you like to be able to do with some of your media? I mean, you've created this platform. What would you like to be able to do with it? Just have fun with it, or do you have a goal?
My initial goal was just for me to was very selfish. It was just
clients?
using, no, not at all, to get myself to train every day.
Well, that's awesome.
Just to go out and because I was asking my clients to do that. It doesn't seem like there's much of a system. My social media platforms, my Instagram and my TikTok, and previously YouTube, or now YouTube Shorts, those are literally, I use all of those as a training log or vlog. So what I post daily was done minutes to maybe a few hours before. So I don't bank, what do they call, store or bank content and then upload it. No, it's sort of like, I'm like a fisherman that when I catch a fish, I serve it the day I catch it. And so people ask me, hey, what's your routine? I said, well, if you just go, that's why I put a date and a time on every video I post. So maybe if people look at that, they'll notice a pattern that, oh, this happens every single day. And it's not always working out. Some days it's stretching. It's usually it's some kind of exercise-based thing. But anyway, going back to your question, before it was just selfish. It was just using this platform and people saying, hey, man, I like that you're doing this every day. So that was a little bit of positive pressure on me or incentive for me to get out there even on days where I didn't, because I started getting addicted to comments, not saying, hey, man, you're the best or you're great or you're the GOAT or any of that, but people saying, man, I like similar to what you said, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, and I didn't even imagine that there was a point to starting exercise at my age. I've been out of it for so long, and that's why I want them to know, not only is that you're never done, but I want them to know that I came from, I wasn't like super fit. I just said, hey, check me out. I started, like I told you, in April of 2020. I was pretty sick and run down and just mentally just gone. And I've built myself up on social media over the time, which is 2.5 years I've been doing this now. And so I want people to, at first I was like, with the TikToks, you only have a few seconds to deliver a message. So at first I was, the ego in me was like, okay, well, I've been doing this a long time, so I'm going to show people things that maybe they haven't seen before. And I still do that now. I still like to show, because my assumption, I was kind of directing my content for people, for fitness people that were already up and running, knew all the moves, and I was going to give them a new variation of some of what they're already doing, with the intention and hope that they would say they're bored with deadlifting. I was going to give them, here's some deadlift variations that might, freshen up what you're doing and get you in the gym with, because I knew what it was like to just deadlift and squat and pull up and put, there's, you start going through the motions after a while. And so I was hoping that I was trying to bring them the kind of moves that would get me out of my rut.
Yeah.
With, that's why what I do I have to have intense interest in what I am doing on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And most of what I do is not easy for me. I'll usually choose things that I'm not very good at. And I'll use breathing and other things to get me through that. Mm. But these are not things that I'm super polished at. These are moves that I consider myself challenging. And if I was online looking for kettlebell exercises or whatever, I try to present exercises that would excite me.
Mm.
But over the 2.5 years I've been doing this, I've realized now that was a little, I guess it was a little bit exclusionary in that there's the majority of people, it took me a little while to realize this, the majority of people that are stumbling across my videos, most of them are not fitness people, or they've been wanting to get back into it. Yeah. And, they might be amused by what I'm doing, but they might think, oh man, that's not relatable. Mm-hmm. That's a new thing I learned, a new concept now that I'm trying to build into my videos is relatable. Yeah. Stuff like, because I do all my Superman stuff that I thought, oh yeah, a high level guy would like to see this. And I still do those because some days that's what I'm in the mood to do. It's just something that would challenge me, and maybe someone who's similarly skilled would say, oh, that's cool. But now I also try to make videos that people who are just stuck, they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I've been starting to do that. I'll be working with a company called Strong and Fit. They make longer form fitness instructional videos. I'll be filming with them in the first week of June.
Nice.
And that first video is going to be targeted towards people who are new. Not only do they have trouble starting fitness, or they've had experience where they've started a program and hit it really hard, like some kind of a group or a boot camp type of thing. They got really good results, but it was just too much. It was not sustainable. Yeah. And there were certain reasons why their adherence suffered and was compromised. So that video is going to address, I'm going to present principles that whether you're new or you're advanced, that these principles are usable for both groups and should kind of make, especially for advanced guys, like some breathing methods that completely change the same exercises. So there are certain breathing patterns they can plug into what they're already doing, but almost every person, that's how I start a new client, is on day one with a new client. I teach them what's called a double compression breathing pattern. And then as we go a little farther, there's what's called anatomical breathing, and there's videos on that on YouTube. I was taught that in kettlebell sport. Wow. But yeah, the breathing principles, because my thing is, if I only see a client that one day, say they only have one session with me and then I never see them again, I want to teach them to fish in a way that should they train with somebody else or never train with a trainer again, that the principles I taught them on breathing and how to integrate that with common strength training movements. Well, if they're new to to fitness, it'll make these rather rote movements make sense. And if you're advanced, I've had advanced people say, wow, that's interesting, man. I didn't know that just plugging that into my bicep curl would affect how I execute that movement. So, and I've been curling weights for like 20 years or something. So that's going to be the first video. So going back to your question real quick is I'm trying to make, I want every video to help somebody. And I also want people to not, I've heard that especially with fitness, and with influencing, that there's the main fault with it is that even though people are thrilled by what they see, like people driving fancy cars and on their vacations in Dubai and Belize and all these crazy and lifestyle stuff and flashing money and clothes and food and restaurants, that the net effect of that is they feel like crap about their own lives at the end. And I do not want to be a contributor to that. That's why I used to literally I was used to be embarrassed of what my fence, and I am embarrassed about my fence because it's I live in a townhouse. I'm not a rich, wealthy guy, and our fence that surrounds the townhouse area is just literally rotting off the frame. That's why in a lot of my videos, you'll see like somebody missing teeth. There are entire slats of wood that are gone in the background of my videos. And some people say, my OCD is just like that missing slat. No, they're joking. They'll say that missing slat behind you is just triggering my OCD. And I say, I'm sorry, man. I'm waiting for the association. We're currently fixing the fence literally as we speak. It's being replaced. But I want people to see that. I want them to see the wood rot behind me and my lawn dying because we've been in a drought. So the grass is uneven. There's patches of brown, and I want people to know I'm a guy. I have bills. I'm in debt. I argue with my wife. I'm not a very good parallel parker. All these things. I want people to leave just feeling better and like they can do what I do. It's maybe not the extreme stuff, but there's a place for them to start, and there are methods that they can use to continue and sustain their fitness.
And I think that's one of the most important things is I love how you point that out. And it is what you're making accessible to people, or is it exclusionary? And it's like, it can be something as simple as, when I see these young influencers and they're posting them with, stacks of cash and they're in those places like Dubai, and I'm just like, I can't relate to that. And not just that, it just makes me feel bad about what I'm doing, And I think that we need to be making people feel better,
That's my hope. Like what I just posted today, I worked with some kettlebells, and I wouldn't recommend that even an experienced or most kettlebell people, I would not recommend that they do the exercise that I posted today. But I had a lot of energy, and it's been stormy here. And for some reason, when it's stormy and overcast and rainy, that's when I get all this energy. I don't know if it's just the ions or whatever, but I get charged. And so I did a very non-relatable video, for today. But there's other days where what I do is, the average person should look at that and say, I can do that. Yeah, because, the weights I use, they're never giant. I'm not the strongest guy in the world. I see guys that, people say, you're so strong, Bill. And I look at other guys' pages on Instagram, and I'm just like, God, if only they were watching this guy, they would know what strong truly is. But yeah, so I just want to I'm trying to bring my stuff to be more relatable. And it's important that people know that I'm just a guy.
I like that.
And, and I just want them, I hope they feel just good and not like they're less I don't want my content to diminish anybody. I want it to draw them in. I do try to bait people with stuff that's, put a little music to something that, whoa, what is that? But if they kind of poke around on the profile or the page a little more, they'll find that there's stuff that's quite, like I like to feature my dogs. If my dogs tend to go in the video and they mess me up,
mine's right here.
Hey, oh, that,
Yeah.
who's that?
This is Elvis. This is my little border
Hi,
collie.
Elvis.
He's sitting here trying to get me to pet him while I'm
Oh,
on on our call. But
cool.
yeah, man,
Right on.
I
Yeah.
always love it when dogs interrupt the interviews. It's great.
Yeah, if I'm not doing anything too dangerous, I like to have my dogs out
Right.
there with me, and they do. They mess me up. So as soon as you go to the floor to do a push-up, you're now in their world,
Yep. And they're like, "Hey,
and
daddy."
all bets are off. Yeah,
Well,
they're just come right in and
that was one of the
do
videos
their thing.
that really drew me to your channel, was that you were a little intimidating to me. Like, wow, some of these lifts, and then all of a sudden your dog ran in, and then you're like, you had to stop and go and give her some love, and I was like, this guy I can relate to. And it was your video with your dog that really like led me to go, yeah, I want to reach out. I feel comfortable
Oh,
messaging this
cool.
person.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I see some pretty scary guys with all the tattoos and, they got the neck out to here. And then I see them holding a corgi or something. And I know that, okay, this guy, I can talk to this guy,
Yeah.
So as scary as they might look, yeah, dogs, yeah, they just kind of, yeah, I think they open up a lot of conversations.
Right.
So
Well,
it's cool. Yeah.
let me ask you this. If you could go back in time
hmm
and give some advice to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would probably, it's easy for me to say this now at 53, but it'd probably have to be, I was gonna say be nice, because when I was younger, I've never physically harmed anybody, um, other than my siblings.
Right.
But I've never struck a stranger on the
Yeah.
street. I've never had a bar brawl with anybody. I've never stolen. Oh, I did shoplift a candy bar from Long's one time, but I was never a criminal or a juvenile delinquent when I was younger. But I was a very unsettled student.
Hmm.
I was very aggressive, and I was just kind of screwed up. I was really messed up, and I was sometimes mean. I was very, like I said, I've never actually. It's a good thing, because based on the way I used to go through life, well into my 30s, I was the kind of guy, like, if I'm going down the supermarket aisle and there's some other guy that's all pumped up and he's coming my way, and you just know that it's like some kind of a swinging dick contest, I'm not moving either, right? And then I used to get caught up in those kind of things, and it's just lucky that nobody ever just laid me out, because yeah, I just had this kind of chip on my shoulder. So, but I would probably have to say, and like I said, it's easy to say now at my age, but to be honest with yourself. I think I tried to project an image of strength, because I was actually, and to this day I still am. I'm kind of insecure. I've always, but when I was younger, I was super insecure,
Mm-hmm.
and I would compensate, like a lot of guys, by muscling up and wearing, the muscle clothes, and just kind of walking like, I was all that. And inside I was, this is trite. You hear this from tons of guys, but inside I was scared, and I wasn't honest with, and I guess I didn't have the courage at the time to be honest, with, and maybe that was the way it should have been at that point in my life, because sometimes your path, it's a progression, and sometimes, like, if I were to go back and tell this guy that, it wouldn't have been appropriate maybe for me to have followed that advice, because in order for me to know what I know now about humility and fallibility and things like that, I had to first walk that arrogance and delusional sense of myself, in order to arrive at where I am now. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, but I guess I'd want to be a little bit more. Oh, Here's one.
I like
Be nicer. Be kind to yourself.
I like that.
You know, I that's one thing that I'd probably, is to this day I'm still pretty harsh on myself, as I'm sure most people are. But now that I've had daughters, and when my first daughter showed up, I kind of raised her like a son, without really, I was a little bit kind of harsh on her, and at least for the first few years, and then I realized, okay, and it wasn't because I was disappointed that she wasn't a boy. I mean, in hindsight now, I think girls are the only thing I should have had.
Yeah.
For what they've taught me. But yeah, I was a little bit harsh on her, and now, and my second one came 9 years later, and I'm much kinder to her now. Because I learned from my first daughter that just trying to force people to be something, or especially trying to force a girl to be a boy, I learned rather quickly that's not the way to approach things, and that's what I tried to do to myself as well. Always had this dialogue of saying when I was younger, in my teen years, I was obsessed with becoming a soldier.
Really?
And I applied for the Marines and for the Army in my late 19 or 20, but I was not allowed to join the military because I have stainless steel pins from a football injury. They didn't have arthroscopic back then, so I have a big incision here, and they actually used two screws to pin. Like apparently they took a part of my bicep, and now it's part of like my deltoid or something. And so the military doesn't take that.
Oh wow.
Which was, I groomed myself from about the age of easily 14 to be a special forces soldier. I would sleep in the rain outside my yard. I would sleep deprive myself. I'd go and anything that I could find about special forces training. This is in the 80s. We didn't have YouTube and all this stuff we have now. I would buy like Soldier of Fortune magazine and Gung Ho magazine, and that was my source of how the special forces. But I was obsessed with that. So, and but just really just kind of always like a drill instructor, and and it was just I wasn't very kind to myself, and maybe that's another thing. It kind of, I guess, it translated outwards. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I look back on that, and like I said, it was a rough period, and luckily I never hurt anybody, and nobody ever hurt me. And I said things to my parents that I kind of wish I didn't say back then, but I hope they know now that I didn't mean it. I was just a dumb kid, but through that process, I've arrived at a place now where I think I have a better sense of myself and how I should be, both for my sake and for others. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say what I'd truly say to that guy in that perspective.
I think even though you're not sure, but it seems that you would probably be kind to him. You know what I mean? And offer a sense of compassion, because I think that's what all of us need on some level. Is that older version of ourselves that just comes in and gives him a hug and say, you know what, man, it's going to be all right.
It's weird. It's I guess there's some saying maybe in Taoism there's something for you attract what you are.
Yeah.
And it's weird. In the years I've been a trainer, I've had several parents bring me their sons who are usually always about 15. And they were like almost mirror images of what I was.
Yeah.
They were aggressive. They were cocky. They were, at the same time, they were lazy and apathetic and depressed. And it was like I was able to, and I understood these kids.
Yeah.
And I was able to access them in a way that was surprising to their parents. They'd oftentimes tell me, I think my son gets more out of his sessions with you than all the time he's spent with his shrink. And it's clear that he relates to you. And I said, well, takes one to know one. I mean,
Right.
because they would ask me, how do you do that? I mean, what are you doing? Or like I have some magic power. I said, no, it's real easy. It's a simple formula that just takes one to know one.
Mhm.
I'm not special, and unless being like your son was, that if that makes me able to access, then okay, then yes, I'm special in that way. But I'm not smarter than his shrink or anybody else that's trying to help him. I'm just an older version of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. Always I always am working with some kid who's was basically like me. And in a way, for me, that's also a little redeeming in that now I know I wasn't the only one. There's generations of me's
Right.
that, it's just a lot of people are going through that.
Yeah.
Because that's another reason why I was so harsh on myself. It's like I felt at 15 when I was really having a hard time, and 16, and that I'm the only I would always call myself a loser. Yeah, you're the only loser that's going through this. You're the only one that, that can't smoke weed and pass and get decent grades enough to, I struggled in school, and, I was smoking weed and just hanging out with, a bunch of guys that were like me. And yeah, so I didn't have a very stellar academic career at the time, but it was a process, and yeah, I like where I am now. So
That's the only important thing, right? Well, brother, this has been
yeah.
an eye-opening conversation. I really appreciate your time, man. I just want to say I really thank
Oh
you for
no,
this. It's been awesome.
well, Sean, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and yeah, I've enjoyed this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
likewise,
this
man.
has been fun.